It's such an honor to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favorite podcast, Pop Culture Pasta. Hey, Doug! Doug! Oh, that's right, Doug's dead.
Pop Culture Pastor.
So, listeners of the show know my love for the fine arts.
Oh, do they?
Yes.
I'm shocked already. Let's go on.
Literally, they have heard me talk about, I have one Yanni song on my playlist. If you've listened to the Ted Lasso watch-alongs, you've heard that I've gone to a Van Gogh immersive experience. And if you listen to the radio pods, you may have even heard me talk about going to Wicked or Spamalot on Broadway. So, lover of the fine arts.
Clearly a large supporter of the arts. Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Cody Haviland.
Yes. Jim Carrey's best movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I know, hot take.
It's not that hot.
But the finest of the arts is a good old-fashioned GIF, because allegedly moms like you choose GIF, or the memes. And I saw a meme that you liked the other day, that Geek of the Round Table Jackson Chauncey had posted. And I completely went an odd direction, and I blamed Sir Patrick Stewart for it.
Okay,
so like the meme said, sing me a song of your childhood, and the dad has keep rolling, rolling, rolling.
Yeah, that was a funny one. Yeah, I remember that one.
And
little Limp Biscuit for the kids.
Okay, so Limp Bizkit, or the Undertaker's theme song when he was the American BA and rode in on the motorcycle. But in my mind, I had Rawhide playing because I had just watched a clip of Sir Patrick Stewart dressed up as a cowboy singing Rawhide, and it starts off, keep rolling, rolling, rolling. Yeah.
Keep them doggies rolling, Rawhide. Yeah.
So literally, did Limp Bizkit pay royalties to the writer of Rawhide? Because that's a complete ripoff.
No. Ed Sheeran winning his case means there is no such thing. Like, look, Ed Sheeran keeping like this attitude of like, this is a travesty and I just can't believe we're even here. Like, dude, the chords sound exactly the same. Now, I'm not an artist. I get it. It's impossible not for some songs to say. I get all that. But if that's the case, if that's what we're going with, then no. They don't owe. Limp Bizkit does not owe the makers of Rawhide any royalties.
And literally, it took me 34 years of living, and however long Limp Bizkit's song has been out.
Although, if I'm being honest, really a lot of synergy between the TV show Rawhide and Limp Bizkit.
Yes.
Yeah, they're basically spiritual brothers.
They are.
Yeah, that's a thing.
So this is Pop Culture Pastor, where we go off on weird tangents about Limp Bizkit and the song Rawhide.
Yeah, I did not know where you were going with that meme. That was a funny meme, though.
It was.
Because I was like, oh, yeah, I listened to Limp Bizkit. I'm sorry. I already repented.
Now, like, it literally took me a minute to get past, like, who is the dad in this? Is this someone from World War II generation?
Yeah. Also, yeah, I got it because you thought you were thinking of a different song.
Yeah, because literally I just saw Patrick Stewart sing the song, and then I had the Undertaker rolling down the ramp on a Harley. So
okay, well, that's good. It's a good way to open. And you know what? I'm just gonna move past you waking up and choosing violence and calling it a GIF instead of a GIF, which it clearly is a GIF.
Moms like you choose GIF.
No, No. You can say all the cute sayings and tie it to the peanut butter all you want. It's a GIF, but I'm gonna move past it. We're not gonna fight about this.
Not today.
Not today, because it's a big day. We've got some news to get to.
All of the news.
Cody, as we know, huge fan of The Weeknd.
Yes. Minus the E. Yes.
Well, he's not The Weeknd anymore.
Good.
The musician and actor has changed his name on all his social media accounts to Abel Tesfaye.
Hey, that's his real name.
That's his birth name across all of his social media accounts. And he said he wants to kill his stage name and be reborn. Quote, "I'm going through a cathartic path right now. It's getting to be a place and time where I'm getting ready to close the Weeknd chapter. I'll still make music, maybe as Abel, maybe as The Weeknd, but I want to kill The Weeknd." Which is interesting because I dated some girls that wanted to kill my Weeknd, but that's a different story.
Oh.
He says, "I still want to kill The Weeknd, and I will. Eventually, I'm definitely trying to shed that skin and be reborn."
So this isn't uncommon or unheard of. Donald Glover, actor from Community and rapper, used to be Childish Gambino for his rap name, and he killed that.
Yeah. Prince did it back in the day.
Yes, he did.
Changed his name to a symbol, like legally, but there was some other things going on that had a lot to do with music royalties and who owned the music and record companies.
My friend John Mellencamp or John Cougar Mellencamp.
Great friends. Know what names they're going by, but go on.
He constantly changed his name. So
if you were as good of friends with Johnny as I am, you would know. Anyway, so The Weeknd is gone, I guess. I don't know.
I'm here for Abel.
Yeah, it's still weird. It's still weird and like slightly pretentious.
What
the
if
way
he
he's
drops
doing it.
a Christian album? Will it be less pretentious?
Then I'm all in. Then I'll be his biggest no. That'd be great. Hey, Weeknd or Abel, as you're going by now, let's talk. Let's chat. I'd love to talk about Jesus with him. I don't even know do we know where he's at spiritually? That's not usually something we ask and talk about on this program.
I feel that there is some Christianity in his upbringing, but that may not have been the only faith tradition coming into his house.
Yeah.
So,
just so we're clear to anyone listening to the pod, we are pastors. But I can, if you ever want to just talk about Jesus with me or Cody, I can promise you we can do that in an unthreatening way and environment. There's no expectations to that. We would love to talk about Jesus with anybody. And I know that for some people who've had conversations like that with people that didn't come with some expectations and possibly some threats. That's not how we would do it. We would love to talk about anybody about Jesus in a very neutral and loving way.
yep,
Yeah. So that's on the table. Now we can move on.
we can.
I don't know where The Weeknd's at.
Goodbye, Weekend.
Zack Snyder gave an interview.
Zachary Snyder.
Here's what I don't get about Zack Snyder and the DCU and DC fandom. Why is his following so big? Scotty loves Zack Snyder.
So I can say from my perspective, because I'm a DC guy,
You are.
that I think that if his, I guess, Snyderverse was actually carried out in a studio that was managed well, and there wasn't some personal things that happened in Zach's life, I think the complete story would have resonated with DC nerds. It would not have hit the public like Marvel does.
Hey, and look, that is a perfectly gracious way to say it and a normal way. I think that's the right way to say it. Like, look, there was a lot of things that happened. And yeah, if he's able to bring his full vision to the scene, that's fine. But let's just talk about Batman versus Superman for a second.
BVS, as the kids call it.
29% on Rotten Tomatoes. So critics basically hated it.
They did.
And for good reasons, right? Like, I love Batman and Superman.
And I really wanted this showdown to happen, but it felt rushed.
It felt super rushed, and it was just kind of painful to watch at times. It just was hard to get through it. I felt like the characters didn't act like the way they should act. There wasn't. My only issue with Zack sometimes is in the characters. There's sometimes not enough reverence for the main material, what you're drawing from, which is fine. Okay. But I think the way you put it was fair and gracious to say that, like, hey, it wasn't all his fault. Things happened. He wasn't allowed to put his vision on the screen, but that's not what he said in this interview. I want to get to this because what he said is maybe the most insulting thing you could possibly say to comic book fans, to nerds. Okay. So he's doing a Q&A at Zack Snyder's Full Circle charity event, which, that's good. I'm glad he does charitable things. By the way, by all accounts, super great dude.
Oh yeah.
He's kind, he's gracious, he's a nice guy.
And big supporter of the mental health and suicide prevention.
Yes.
Which May is Mental Health Month. Mental health matters. You're welcome.
Because I don't like what he said here that I'm about to read you, doesn't mean I don't think he's a dude who's doing good things. Right?
Okay.
The moderator pointed out that Snyder created so many layers in Batman vs. Superman, which, okay. So the moderator's clearly there to buff him up, right?
Yeah.
But asked him about the bad reviews of Batman vs. Superman. Okay, so here's the quote. He says, the moderator says, well, this film in particular, you created so many layers for the storytelling and the characters. Debatable. And I think you have to want to make an effort to dig a little deeper. And then Snyder takes over. He kind of continues. He says, yes, but I think that probably is what caused the movie to be so polarizing. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people went into the movies for going like, oh, it's the superhero romp, right? Let's have fun with it. And we gave them this sentence is amazing. We gave them this sort of hardcore, deconstructivist, heavily layered, experiential, modern mythological superhero movie that you really need to pay attention to, which wasn't cool, quote, for them. That's not something anyone wanted to do. They were like, what? No, that's exhausting. How about why do they fight at night? I hate that. Like, let me tell you how. Are we sure that's not Martin Scorsese? Like, that is so pretentious to land. Like, your movie wasn't critically well received, and to go to it was so deep and layered, you just didn't get it. Like, what? Oh, I'm sorry, Terrence Malick. I didn't realize that your movie was so deep and layered.
So my problems with the movie don't necessarily go into like the deepness or layeredness. And I do think there are some layers, but I think that the layers would have landed a lot better if either Batman is younger or if Superman and Batman have had a relationship for a while.
Calling that movie layered is an insult to onions.
Ouch. But I do think that, so Zack Snyder does try to build up the superheroes to a godlike status. And he tries to show you how like the putting your faith and the trust in the heroes at times will leave you heartbroken, lonely, vulnerable. And at times their egos get in the way. And so there is some mythos there. I don't know if it's well-written mythos or not. I haven't watched because there's a Snyder cut or director's cut of BVS. And evidently that cut is the cut to watch, not the trash that they released in cinema. But
if it goes along the same paths as the uncut version of Justice League, I can say, yes, it's improved, but I still have the same sort of overall problem with it in that, like, look, Zach, it's good. It's pretty to look at times.
Oh yeah.
He really has this kind of visionary way of filming a fight scene that I can look at and say, and give him full credit. Say, this is an amazing camera work. It's amazingly imagined and then put to film. But I don't like the irreverence to the source material, which, to be fair, might just be a DC problem in this era, in that era. Like, look, Black Adam, I don't know what to tell you other than, like, that went off the rails because they let The Rock do whatever he wanted instead of, like, hey, stick close to the source material.
Yeah.
Because that's what the fans want. That's why they're fans.
So I think with, like, unknown commodities, you can be a little loosey-goosey. Like, no one knows Peacemaker before
Right.
Suicide Squad and the Peacemaker series. So, I mean, you could literally have his story completely a 180 and no one's going to know, for better or for worse, unless they're like, well, now I want to read about Peacemaker. Where Black Adam's so closely tied in with Shazam, and Shazam's a well-beloved property. So, yeah, that one didn't quite stick the landing.
Yeah.
And the thing with DC is there's so many reboots and parallel universes and within the comics that there's a lot of different versions of characters meeting up and characters' origins. Does Batman get really paranoid and fight Superman to the death? You betcha. But there's a relationship already there.
Yeah.
It's not, hey, buddy, I just met you. Now we're going to duel.
Right. Yeah. You get rid of maybe the most important part of Batman and Superman is that not only do they know each other, they like each other, they're friends, they respect each other, but yet it's complex.
And Bruce is always paranoid.
Bruce has trust issues. Superman, if anything, is too trusting.
Superman's too trusting. Bruce is like, if he ever goes bad.
Yeah. So there's this dynamic of the relationship that should be there, or that we at least should see developing, that we don't. They just go straight to trying to kill each other, which, anyways, my point isn't to dwell on that. My point is to show the awfully pretentious answer that Zack Snyder gave, which, to be fair, it was at his own event, surrounded by his own fans who say, like, they're the greatest movies ever made. And that's fine. So I understand the answer is going to play well where he said it. But outside of that, it's like, what is he talking about? Like, that's just a bonkers answer. Now, related to that.
Okay, there's more news.
On Twitter, well, we got some Superman media on Superman media violence here. Because on Twitter, something that kind of went viral and was going around was people were with the tweeting, show me the exact moment you checked out of a movie, with either a GIF or a picture of the spot in a movie where it lost them.
Okay.
So somebody tweeted, Ryan Airy tweeted, show me the exact moment you checked out of a movie, and it's Pa Kent from Man of Steel telling Clark to not save him from the tornado. And John Glover, who played Lionel Luthor in Smallville, quote tweeted it and said, exactly.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. So he went in hard. And frankly, I agree with him. That scene, while cool, makes no sense in the Superman mythos.
He's faster than a speeding bullet.
He literally runs so fast they can't see him. Like, he could have done it and nobody would have seen him. And then you could have said anything. Well, the tornado, threw him 100 yards.
Pa Kent out in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and whatever. But, it doesn't make sense. And that's my problem with Zack Snyder is the end of Man of Steel. Like, so Man of Steel in parts is wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
There's some things that are really good, but it's kind of killed for me in these moments where you lose the character and again, the accuracy and the reverence for the source material of what makes Superman Superman and Pa Kent. In that scene, I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's a cool scene for the feels.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't make sense. And that's the same with the end of Man of Steel, where he feels like his only out is because his, Zod's heat vision is getting closer to the people, is to break his neck. When, like, I don't know, couldn't he have just taken his hand and put it in front of his eyes? He's indestructible. Like, there's so many things he could have done. He could have just chucked Zod.
So the plot piece from Man of Steel that gets BVS going is Superman destroys all Metropolis.
Yes. The last third of Man of Steel is just a disaster from the standpoint of who Clark is. And what Pa Kent instilled in him.
In which I know fans will say that, well, he has to learn the line that he'll never cross again. But like,
you don't level Metropolis to teach him that lesson.
Within the Superman story, usually there's a lot of good reverence for life, property, people, dogs.
Yeah, and that's okay. Listen, all of that's okay. I enjoyed Man of Steel. There were parts I had problems with. There were parts I loved. Great. But it is what it is, and I just figured I'd throw it out there.
I think that if you're a Snyder fan, you like the Snyderverse. If you're not, don't try to force it.
Speaking of people who are too good for comic book movies, Kevin Feige also did an interview this week.
Feigs?
Yes, Kevin. He did an interview where he was talking about things that could have been. And he says this in this interview. He says, quote, "There's a fun Tony Stark story I'd like to leave you with. And I can say, embrace your flaws, be persistent, surround yourself with an amazing group of collaborators, but there will always be elements that will be out of your control. One of those elements is luck. You can have the best ideas, the best plans, best intentions, but unless life aligns just right, they may never come to pass, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes it can be a positive." So first of all, Kevin Feige doing some preaching. That's great. Some things happen for the reasons that are best for you, even if they don't seem that way at the time. So, right, good stuff. He continues. "When we were casting the role of Iron Man, we looked at so many different actors. We had to find the perfect mix of heart and strength and charisma. Being our first Marvel film out of the gate, the stakes couldn't have been higher. The success of the film and the future of our entire studio on the shoulders of this one person, and it was not an easy task, but together with my team and our casting directors and our director, Jon Favreau, we culled down our list, we pinpointed the right guy, we extended an offer to our top choice, an actor who checked all the boxes and who we were confident would be a huge hit, and he passed. He wasn't interested." And you're thinking, wait, their first choice wasn't Robert Downey Jr.? No, it was not. Their choice was Clive Owen.
Boom!
Clive Owen, Oscar-nominated actor. You can't see anyone but Robert Downey Jr. in this role. But when he said that, when I read that, I was like, okay, I could see Clive Owen. But I love that Clive Owen's not interested. You just almost hear him be like, "No, I don't do superhero movies. That's beneath me."
He was in Children of Men.
Yeah, he's in all these artsy flicks.
Highbrow cinema, fine arts, if you will.
Clive Owen is a serious actor, Feige. How dare you?
Yeah, you get that out of here.
Get right out of here.
So I honestly think Clive Owen would have made a great Tony Stark.
Well, I do too. And now, come on, Clive. You got to come back for multiverse stuff. Come back and be Iron Man in a different reality. That would be amazing.
I did see something that kind of goes along this, but it was a completely different reason. Mm-hmm. So there's this cat named Sam Worthington. Who doesn't emote well most of the time.
He made more money acting than you have.
He has. And so it's part of the reason that Avatar, he's great. Because he's blue and it's not his like actual demeanor and face most of the time. It's just kind of based off of it. Matt Damon was offered that role first.
No.
Was offered 10% of the revenue.
Oh my gosh.
That was Jimmy Cameron's like power play to get Matt, and Matt said, I don't think I can do this role. Like, I don't think that I can convey enough to make it worthwhile. Where I think they could literally put me in this role, and no one's going to know if I'm Sam Worthington or if it's you or myself. So, because we're all blue. Like, I couldn't tell Kate Winslet was in the second one. Couldn't tell.
What do you think Sam Worthington got paid? Do you think he read that? Whoa, 10%, bro.
Oh, Matt Damon would have.
It made over $1 billion.
He'd have Phil Knight money.
Oh man, wow, major L. That's an L, bro.
And that's why he has to do these Thor movies.
Matt Damon doesn't need your money. Okay, you're gonna have to help me out here because I'm not a Swiftie.
Okay.
I'm not a big. I don't know much about
As
Taylor
a
Swift.
1989er, a fellow one, I'm game for this.
Taylor Lautner recently did an interview.
Of Twilight fame.
Yes, and former Taylor Swift, an ex of Taylor Swift, which he has his own song. So Taylor Swift makes songs about her exes. That's like a thing.
Occasionally.
And she has been in the process of re-releasing her albums.
Because Scooter was a dirty, no good, dirty person.
She doesn't own them anymore. So now she's making her own versions, redoing the songs basically. And they were asking Taylor Lautner today was asking him, and they asked
Team
him
Jacob.
about the album that his song was on. He's like, I think it's a great album. Yeah, I feel safe, like, because some of her fans can get crazy. And then he throws in there, and this is hilarious. I'm praying for John in reference to John Mayer, who is another Taylor ex.
Oh, yeah. And she has like, this song just slaps right in the face of John Mayer. Dear John, title of the song.
And John Mayer has been kind of outspoken about the song he appeared in, about it being kind of like, about how it made him feel, that, it doesn't feel good. And Taylor Lautner playing it off pretty well for his part.
Jake Gyllenhaal got roasted when his song got re-released and made into like a 17-minute music video.
Yeah. I just don't. What is this? She's literally made a career off of making songs about her exes. Like, doesn't that seem... I know that what I'm about to say fits in with the world just fine because we're vengeful people. But doesn't that seem sort of, just bitter and vengeful?
Like half of Fleetwood Mac's songs are about breakups within the group dynamics.
It also seems like really like lacks humility on any level because I'm assuming her songs she doesn't take any responsibility for breakups of her own, does she? Or are these songs about the faults of the people she dated?
So the issue we're seeing now, because she's re-releasing songs, like these songs are old.
People are like hate tweeting these people.
Well, people are hate tweeting these people, but these songs are old.
Yeah.
So Taylor, I would say, has matured a lot since then.
That's fair.
And I would also say, like, especially with Jake Gyllenhaal and maybe John, that the age gap and how young she was, and like the optics don't look good. And so, like, you're dating a songwriter. Literally, Ed Sheeran wrote a song about second time we've mentioned Edward.
Yeah. Or did he?
Yes. He wrote this song, and it's about Ellie Goulding. And I mean, clearly, if you heard the story that was published and you listen to the song lyrics, it like matches up perfectly, and it's like, ugh. So like other singers do it, and again, Lindsey Buckingham did it to Stevie Nicks. Stevie Nicks did it to Lindsey Buckingham.
Here's what I'm going to say. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me when I think about this. I know that artists, it is perfectly natural for them to create stuff that comes out of a broken relationship. I will say as a consumer, I think it's gross. I think it's gross that they make money off it. Like, I just don't like it. It doesn't, I tend to not dig those songs.
Tell that to Carly Simon.
Yeah.
You're so vain.
The only one I ever liked was, I'll admit I kind of liked Cry Me a River by Justin Timberlake, but I just thought it sounded good. But then when I think about it, it's basically him bashing Britney Spears. I'm like, no thanks.
I will keep going back to Fleetwood Mac because I'm in a Fleetwood Mac mood, but Go Your Own Way is so good. And that was a Lindsey Buckingham song.
Yeah.
Not a Stevie song.
But as we've discussed with Bruce Springsteen and Born in the USA, it doesn't really matter what the artist means in that case anyways. Because for a lot of people, that song, Go Your Own Way, has nothing to do with a breakup. It's more about the freedom of doing your own thing, right? Isn't that what that song has come to mean to people?
If you listen to the lyrics, you can only interpret it one way.
We don't do that.
We don't.
All right. That brings an end to our news segment. When we come back, we're talking trilogies.
Rawhide.
We're rolling. No, we're not. Please, no more Limp Bizkit references. All right, we're back. We're here to talk about trilogies coming off of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Cody, where I think Guardians works quite nicely as a trilogy because I was thinking about this today as I was talking about trilogies with someone else.
Not named me.
Yeah, and specifically about Guardians that because this person isn't a big fan of Marvel movies, and I said if you wanted to watch just the 3 Guardians movies and throw in the holiday special, you could do that without getting into the full Marvel story. They're self-contained pretty well.
There's so much movie or so many movies that you'd have to watch with like other franchises within Marvel.
Yeah,
and this one again pretty self-contained. There's no random like tie-in characters. You don't even have Thor mentioned in any of the 3, even though they appear in Love and Thunder. So
yeah, and I think if we start off kind of building where we were last week, which if you haven't listened to our Guardians 3,
stop listening now.
If you haven't seen Guardians 3, you should definitely go watch it and then listen to our pod from last week. Because if we can just build right from there, I think what we're talking about is one of the better trilogies of all time. It's a good trilogy.
So I will go as far because I haven't done an order yet. Like,
yeah,
it's still,
I couldn't even approach that right now.
It's still like racking around my mind, but it is easily the best Marvel trilogy, and I'll include the new Spider-Man movies as part of Marvel for kicks and giggles. And it is now something that Marvel can say, take that, Christopher Nolan. We have something comparable.
Well, I think Spider-Man had a trilogy with the Tobey Maguire movies. The first 2 were good. The third one kind of left a sour taste.
Second one was okay.
No, stop it. The second one was a masterpiece. It was the best one.
Yeah. I was saying the second one was okay. The first one was trash.
Oh, it was not trash. Come on. That's ridiculous.
It's James Franco slander.
What a ridiculous thing to say. But it was a trilogy at least. And then we're denied the Andrew Garfield trilogy because both of those movies were trash.
There was one really good scene.
And again, I'll just, since we talked about Zack Snyder in the news segment, why were the Andrew Garfield movies not great? Because they didn't have a reverence for the source material. That's my problem with it. When you have the Rhino just as a very loud dude in a metal suit with a horn on it, bro, no.
They nailed that one.
Nailed it. Sony's like, nailed it. Give us all your money. Also, Kraven the Hunter coming out soon. Kraven the Environmentalist.
Hunter.
Yeah. He literally in the comics hunts animals and kills them brutally. But in the movie, he's going to be like an animal lover. And Sony's like, nailed it. It's like, no.
So will Kraven hunt like the people that hunt exotic endangered species?
Well, that's the rumor. I don't know what it's about. Sony making all the, this is an aside, but Sony making all the terrible headlines as Chiwetel Ejiofor has been cast in the next Venom movie. And I'm just like, what? Why would you even, he's in the MCU. He's Baron Mordo. Why would you cast this guy? He's a great actor, but can we get some continuity, please? Sony just out here being bonkers. They cast the old Quicksilver. Now they cast Baron Mordo.
Let's see if they can cast the new
what they
Fantastic Four.
What they need to do is cast Morbius into the Lake of Fire. Into the fires of Mount Doom to never be seen again. Can you do that? Can you cast that, Sony?
I still need to watch it.
No, you don't need to.
It's Morbin time.
So what were we even talking about?
Trilogies.
Where were we? We're talking about
Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah. So superhero trilogies. There's been some good ones.
Captain's not bad.
Captain America?
Yeah. I really love Captain. I love all three of them. So like that was Marvel's top trilogy for me until Guardians became a trilogy.
Yeah, it's that one's tough. I will say I agree it qualifies as a trilogy, even though like by the
Civil
third
War,
one,
it's everyone and their mom.
Yeah, by the third one, it's encompassing so much more of the ongoing story.
Like you can't watch that one by itself.
No, it feels a little disjointed from the kind of what we're going to talk about. Which let's just put this on the table. What makes a trilogy? Because Scotty, Geek of the Round Table Scotty, is messaging me through the week saying that like he thinks the Zack Snyder trilogy of Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Justice League is one of the best trilogies. And I'm like, first of all, bro, that is not a trilogy. Stop that. That is not a trilogy. Those were not connected movies other than they had
Superman.
Some characters reappearing in them. But a trilogy to Man of Steel would have been Man of Steel 2. And then if you wanted to say Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, fine. That maybe that would have been a trilogy, but they rushed it and they went fast. It's not a trilogy. It's just not. Are we in agreement there?
So I wouldn't count it as a trilogy unless you're saying the Snyder trilogy. And then like...
But then it's a figurative thing. It's not a real trilogy. Now let's just get this on the table too. Cody's rules of trilogy far looser than mine.
So there are purists like Dave.
Yeah.
And then there are people that recognize what is happening. And oftentimes what we in the biz like to call a cash grab.
We in the biz. Now, okay, so in my definition, let me just try and define this. I've been thinking about this. A trilogy is either one of two things. One, it is 3 movies that you had pre-planned out that tell a story, right? And so think the original Star Wars trilogy.
Okay.
Star Wars New Hope, Star Wars Empire that Strikes Back, Star Wars Return of the Jedi tells a complete story. It was in George Lucas's head. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's sort of the textbook trilogy in my way of thinking. Now, Indiana Jones presents a different kind of trilogy in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade, in that what they made were new stories continuing a character's life, where he's the central character. And I think that can be a trilogy as well, because it works out kind of the same way. Raiders of the Lost Ark is sort of a beginning. Temple of Doom is sort of a middle, and Last Crusade ties it up nicely. Now, however, the danger of making movies like that and calling it a trilogy are Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Once they make that, my definition says it's not a trilogy anymore. Cody, would you like to present your side of that?
Oh yeah. So my dear friends at Empire
Magazine,
yes, and at Screen Rant, they both list. Wait for it. Indiana Jones as a trilogy, and they identify that they would have the trilogy a lot higher on their list instead of being like number 7, but purists within their own workforce.
So they're not unanimous.
They're not unanimous, but they classify it as a trilogy.
Yeah, I don't know. I disagree.
And so with Indiana Jones, with Die Hard, with I think Rambo was a trilogy forever and
it was for a long time.
All these movies, there's a clear end date. Like they stopped making them. You wait like a whole generation, and then it's like, oh, people love nostalgia. Cash grab.
Okay, there's some validity to that. So you're saying the original makers of the first 3,
yes,
had a vision, had intent, and that was a natural in their mind trilogy. And then years later, like they did with Indiana Jones, the cash grab happens.
Yes,
They
were okay with the ending with Bruce Willis and Sammy Jackson teaming up, and then
I have some sympathy for that sort of view.
Especially,
I can see it.
Like when you get to the last Die Hard or Die Hards, like, oh, John can do everything under the sun. Like, oh, is he now special forces? What happened to this simple cop that's just trying to get home on Christmas?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I can see what you're saying, and I think there's some valid points in there, but I'm going to stop short of saying Indiana Jones is a trilogy, just because even if it was up in the air and it was debatable, there's another one coming out. So do we just say stop at a certain point and say, well, everything new they make, what if Dial of Destiny is really good?
So I will counter this.
Okay.
With, let's just pretend for kicks and giggles, they make another movie after Dial of Destiny. So now we have an old trilogy.
Harrison Ford going to be in a wheelchair.
Yes. And the new trilogy. Because, I mean, if we look at the original Star Wars and we look at the last 3 that came out, the last 3 clearly build off of the original. Because, like, we have Han being the main focus of episode 7. And then we have Luke being primarily the main focus of episode 8. And Leia's the main focus of 9 with Darth Vader in the background and Palpatine and all those kids. So I'm just saying, like, if they were to go and make another movie, does it take on the whole Star Wars thing of, well, this chapter of movies is its own trilogy, and then this chapter of movies is its own trilogy?
Well, I think so. Star Wars is a great example because the 3 movies of each of them, the original, the prequels, and the sequels, were planned out as we're going to make 3 movies. We're going to make a trilogy. So, and even though the sequels, we could say there was some problems there. They didn't map it out well enough, apparently.
It was a really bad cash grab.
Yeah, and they didn't plan out enough of the story they were going to tell and keep their filmmakers in control.
I'm still baffled by, the ancient prophecy in this piece of equipment will help us guide us to this wreck that just happened.
Like 20 years ago? This is an ancient relic? The Death Star? Never mind. Anyways,
Yes.
I think we can still say, and no, those are trilogies because they were planned out that way. So the original trilogy obviously was just planned out as a 3, although George had other stories in his head. He did the whole time. The prequels were planned out as a trilogy. And the sequels were planned out as a trilogy, just not as well.
Evidently, George wasn't the problem with the prequels.
And Star Wars and Disney clearly going to keep making movies.
Oh, yeah.
So remains to be seen whether they'll make another trilogy out of something or if they'll just make some standalone movies. We'll see about that. The big news lately has been
Ray's back.
well, yes, they're making another movie with Ray 15 years after the original. So that's a good point. If Ray's the main character
And
and
Ray
it
was,
has characters from the sequels and it builds off that story, does that remain a trilogy? It's a good question. I would have to see it first. We'll have to see.
in my definition, that chapter or segment ended with episode 9.
Yeah.
And so it could stay a trilogy.
Yeah, I don't know that I would feel too strongly about it, but
/ I really don't care about that trilogy. So
Dave Filoni is making an Heir to the Empire movie, which frankly should be a trilogy because I believe that was more than one book, if I remember right. I think that the story of that kind of went on, but I don't recall. That was a long time ago. Cool story, though. I hope they do that justice.
yeah.
But yeah, so what makes a trilogy? Well, it kind of has to be planned out as a trilogy, sort of. Cody has some qualifying rules where he says the Indiana Jones trilogy is still a trilogy, even though
Die Hard's still a trilogy.
No,
Rambo's
Die
still
Hard's-
a trilogy.
Come on, Die Hard's really a stretch because that one.
Die Hard's a trilogy.
Literally, the sequel is just like Die Hard 2, Die Harder. Like that was not a planned out idea. 2 was a cash grab. The sequel's a cash grab.
Yeah, but they had ended the cash grab at 3.
Die Hard is great movie. Die Hard 2 says we just going back to the well because we want the monies. Die Hard 2, Die Harder. Then there's Die Hard 3 going back to the monies.
Yeah.
Die Harden for cash. Come on.
So I don't know if Godfather set out to be a trilogy because Godfather 3 does take place so far out, and it's.
I think Mario Puzo is still writing books though. We need someone who's like the literary expert on the Godfather stuff because I don't know the original story. What's still based on original story from Mario Puzo there,
and what Francis Ford Coppola wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which he should not have cast his daughter.
In movie standards, it's definitely a trilogy, right?
Yes.
From just the movie angle, it's clearly a trilogy, even though 3 happens quite a bit later.
And it's not good compared to the other 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, compared to the other 2, it's not like you watch that and think, boy, that was just a terrible movie. Like, no, it's pretty good.
I would say that 3 is just as good as most of the other mafia movies, not named The Godfather.
Yeah. But, okay, so you've kind of gotten a feel for what we think makes a trilogy. We're never going to completely agree on that, so we're not going to continue on the debate. We just wanted to give you an idea. The next question, when we're thinking about what makes a trilogy, how connected do they have to be? That's kind of, the questions that I pondered. And that's loose. Like Guardians of the Galaxy 3, or the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I think can be called a trilogy, even though they're part of a grander story.
Yeah.
But they're self-contained enough. And we kind of talked about that with Captain America being a little bit more difficult to call a trilogy, even though I still think I would qualify it as a trilogy.
It has Captain America in the name.
Yeah. The weird thing about the MCU is there's nothing like it. That's the only time that's ever something's been like that in cinema. So
yeah, because the Nolan verse, that's all by itself.
Yeah. So the big question when defining a trilogy is a movie with some of the same characters a part of the main set of movies. So if the Guardians appear, for instance, in Thor Love and Thunder, should that be added to their canon? I don't know. I don't think so.
They were only there for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. So in your mind, Cody, what makes a good trilogy?
So a good trilogy, I think the worst movie in the trilogy is still something that's rewatchable. And the best movies are clearly going to be like very rewatchable. So a trilogy that most people wouldn't go to unless you are into the psychological thrillers or the suspense, the Hannibal Lecter trilogy. If you liked the character of Hannibal Lecter, then you're going to like the other 2 movies, Red Dragon and Hannibal, which I just mixed up the order there. Hannibal, then Red Dragon. And you get Edward Norton, which is fun. But if you like that character, so some movies are very focused on a central character. And so if you really like that character of Hannibal Lecter,
Indiana Jones.
Or Indiana Jones or Rambo, you are going to like it throughout. The character actually has development, that there's some stakes with it. So
Okay.
I think that has to be a part of it. But the rewatchability factor, even of your least favorite of the trilogy. So like growing up, Temple of Doom was my least favorite of the Indy trilogy.
Shocking Temple of Doom slander.
Well, Sean Connery's hilarious. And
They're all good.
Yes.
Yeah. I love Temple of Doom because it was dark.
Now, as an adult, I have a greater appreciation of Temple of Doom. But as a kid, I would still watch Temple of Doom when it was on. It wasn't something I'm like, ew, Temple of Doom. Let's move off that one.
We were different kids because I think Temple of Doom was the one I watched the most as a kid.
Honestly, the last one is the one I probably watched the most because, again, Sean Connery, that is just the chef's kiss.
Well, and it hits you in the right age range.
It does.
Yeah. But I enjoyed Last Crusade. Just as far as my feels, I probably would say Last Crusade is my favorite. But I think when I'm talking about a movie, like I'm using my critique, I like Temple of Doom better.
Oh, yeah.
But Last Crusade's awfully fun.
Junior.
Yeah. I do think, you put it well. And here's the thing. What we consider a trilogy is going to be highly subjective. Some people are going to have different things. It so rarely happens now, I think, where you have the story designed as 3 movies or 3 books or whatever. Lord of the Rings is a great example of the classic trilogy.
My friend Tolkien. He had it planned out.
Yeah. So when Peter Jackson set out to make movies off the Lord of the Rings, they made them concurrently. So they knew they were making 3 movies. They made them all at once. Now that can be a good thing or a bad thing, I think.
Look at The Matrix.
Yeah, The Matrix.
Because they did the second and third movies that way.
And they're so bad.
It was not enjoyable.
And do you even consider The Matrix a trilogy anymore? Now, by Cody's definition.
Yes.
Yeah, by Cody's definition, yes, because the most recent one's clearly a cash grab. Which,
yes. They're feeding off nostalgia, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But
you're winning me over with that description. I can be okay with that description.
Because, again, people love to cash in on nostalgia. Yeah. I mean, the most recent Halloween movies, if we were to break those off from all the previous ones, because they came out as a planned trilogy, it's not a bad trilogy, although it's dependent upon the first movie for sure, maybe the second movie. But by the end of the most recent Halloween movie, you think that maybe Halloween 3 and Halloween 5 have something to do with this trilogy. And so it's not standalone.
Yeah. So if we look at Lord of the Rings and we say this is a classic in the sense of a trilogy, there's a clear beginning, middle, and end stories encased in the trilogy. Tolkien writes it that way. Peter Jackson comes along and makes the movies that way. That's a great trilogy. It's in its realization, that is the perfect trilogy, maybe one could say. I would also throw the original Star Wars in that. I think is a perfect trilogy where you have the beginning story, you have the middle story where it's real angsty ending, and then you have the really crowd-pleasing happy ending final story.
Tears are shed when Ewoks die.
Yeah. But then Peter Jackson's also a great example of a terrible trilogy in what he does to The Hobbit, in my opinion, because now you're taking far less source material.
Oh, yeah.
And it was almost like they identified, it was clearly a cash grab, in my opinion, because it's like, hey, let's take all the main big things that happen in The Hobbit, let's spread them out equally over 3 movies and then put filler in between. That's what those movies felt like to me.
So, like with Tolkien, honestly, they could have done the Harry Potter thing, like Deathly Hallows Part 1, Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Yeah.
With each book. Mm-hmm. The Hobbit could have been 2 books or 2 movies.
Yeah, but it almost could just be one like 3-hour, 3.5-hour movie.
Oh, yeah. So, like, it's either going to be a really long one movie or you split it up in 2 books or 2 movies and call it good.
Yeah.
And
it definitely did not need 3.
So I think they wanted to hang their hats on another trilogy and another Peter Jackson trilogy.
I'm just going to be real honest. The Hobbit is the first book in my life that I just fall in love with. I loved that book. And watching those movies feels tedious to me. It just feels tedious because the stuff they added in, I'm not really interested in. It's a great example of not sticking to not having a reverence for the source material in that. And it's weird that it's Peter Jackson who had such a reverence for the source material while making Lord of the Rings.
Your friend Vigo had beef with Pete on The Hobbit.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's an example of a bad trilogy. I think, what were we talking about just before that was The Matrix is another example of a bad trilogy where they make the Wachowski brothers at the time.
Yeah. Now sisters.
Make one of the like culture defining movies ever.
Oh, yeah.
In The Matrix.
There were pastors doing sermons over The Matrix, the first movie.
Yeah.
There were TV shows, internet boards.
Yeah. Well, essentially, the story they're trying to tell, just the bones of it. Oh, you're telling me you live in a world that's out of your control and is not created by you, that you're living in a creation of someone else's design? Go on.
Yes.
Right. So it lends naturally to a creationist worldview.
It does.
And it was amazing. The Matrix, the first Matrix movie, while not being my particular cup of tea, it's not like one of my favorite movies. I knew that I'd watched something profound when I watched it. I would admit that. 2 and 3 are just awful and bring the first one down, in my opinion.
Yeah. If you have to watch 2 and 3, it will ruin 1.
Yeah, it's so bad. So what makes a trilogy bad? Stretching out a story that's good that didn't need 3 movies. Trying to make 3 movies just to make 3 movies. That's not good. That's not going to work. What makes a bad trilogy? Just poor planning. I think the Star Wars sequels are a great example of that, where we want to make 3 movies. We have a starting point and an end point, but we're going to let directors do whatever they want in the middle. And then we're going to disagree with what this director did and go back this way. And, like, that's just a mess. Yeah. You got to have more control over the story than that.
So, like, there's feel-good trilogies that, like, I'm not going to say they're all-time classics, but they're ones that, hey, I'm going to enjoy watching these, like, all 3 of them. So I grew up with the Mighty Ducks.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so that's a trilogy.
Uh-huh.
The Mighty Ducks, D2 Mighty Ducks, and D3 The Mighty Ducks.
Look, and but by the way, a great example of, does this have to be good cinema? No. Did the Mighty Ducks have a place in my heart? I loved those movies. And I loved all three of them, by the way.
Emilio.
Gordon Bombay. It's not worth winning if you can't win big.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I would also include the Austin Powers trilogy within.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Within that, not highbrow fine art cinema.
Oh, but doggone it, are they fun?
I even laugh at Goldmember.
Oh, yeah. There's parts of that movie that are hilarious.
And even the parts where they're just making fun of the Dutch. I don't know why. Like, there's nothing wrong with the Dutch, but when Sir Michael Caine is like, I'll make fun of the Dutch, I'll laugh at
that. Is maybe one of my favorite lines from all three of the movies, where he's just kind of monologuing and he says, there's two things in this world that I can't stand: people who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch. And the look on Mike Myers' face, the reaction he has is perfect. Like, that's a hilarious scene. And yeah, so again, it's not highbrow humor. It's lowbrow humor. But man, sometimes those are just fun. And it's a great trilogy. It's a fun time.
It's a step above the Naked Gun trilogy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I prefer Austin Powers to the Naked Gun for sure. Okay, here's what I'd like to do, Cody. I'd like to go through some trilogies, and I'm going to use Empire Magazine's list.
Yeah.
And they list some of the best trilogies according to them. And I want to ask, we'll just kind of go through these quickly.
My friend at Empire.
And I want to ask the questions about this trilogy. 1, is it a trilogy? 2, is it good? Or 3, is it bad?
Okay.
Hit
me with it.
So the first one is they say the Jersey trilogy, which is the Kevin Smith movies Clerks, Mallrats, and Chasing Amy from 1994 to 1997. Is that a trilogy?
Well, now that they've made multiple Clerks, that kind of ruins the trilogy. Because I would think that Clerks becomes its own.
But like, look, this article came out last year.
I know.
But yeah, again, we have to define what's a trilogy. And if you're saying that the order he made these movies makes these trilogies, and then Clerks 2 and Clerks 3, by your definition, maybe are cash grabs, where he just comes back to revisit the material and they don't really count. I guess maybe, because I can see what they're saying, because these movies hold a special place in my heart.
Oh, yeah.
So this hits me in my young adult years. Literally, when Clerks comes out, I'm working in a convenience store and a little family-owned video store. So it just hits me in this sweet spot where I just think it's hilarious.
Dave is a clerk.
But if I'm being honest, is this a trilogy? No. He's made tons of movies with these characters.
Dogma.
Jay and Silent Bob are in what, like 9 movies? They've had a TV series, a cartoon, a comic book.
So, like, if they had made Clerks a trilogy on this list, I would have said, yeah, that's a trilogy. This doesn't feel like a trilogy just because there wasn't, like, a clear chapter ending, I guess.
So,
because it just kept going.
If we don't feel like it's a trilogy, I can't really say whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. Move on.
So we just move on. The Hannibal Lecter trilogy, Hannibal, or Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and Red Dragon, 1991, 2001, 2002. Is it a trilogy?
Yes, I could say that 2 and 3 are cash grabs because people like the suspense and they really love serial killers.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, there's a TV. It spawns a TV series. There's some other stuff here, but I would say no. I think, especially, there's a lot of time between Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal, 10 years. But then Red Dragon comes out the next year after Hannibal, which that's sort of a theme in a lot of these where they kind of made them concurrently. Mm-hmm. Pirates of the Caribbean does this. There were several. I also think most of the time when they do that, the quality suffers. Pirates of the Caribbean for sure, Matrix for sure. But in this one, I thought Hannibal and Red Dragon were both pretty good movies.
Yeah.
Even if they're not my cup of tea, I'm not normally a serial killer, scary movie guy.
I was here for it.
But yeah, I know some people are, and clearly it's a trilogy.
Yeah.
And clearly I'll say, yeah, it's a good trilogy.
It is.
Deserves to be
On a
ranked.
list.
They have Mission Impossible 1 through 3 on here, which, come on now. Which one? How many? What's the one that comes out this year? Is it 5?
Oh, I thought this was 6 or 7.
I lost track. So they say Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3 coming out in 1996, 2000, and 2006. For me, this is no way. No, I'm sorry. This is not a trilogy. And no. Tom Cruise is going to keep making Mission Impossibles till he's not around. Are we in agreement on that?
I will just say, before Tom Cruise was born, missions were possible.
No, they weren't. There was a TV series, and Robert Stack the missions were just as impossible for him.
Is that the
Unsolved Mysteries guy? Yeah. He was I believe he was the original Ethan Hunt.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want
right.
to watch that.
Yeah, you should. You should.
Because, like, there's an Unsolved Mysteries channel, and I'll put that on to take a nap. Because Robert has a very soothing voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Saying that the Mission Impossible, first 3 Mission Impossible movies are a trilogy are like saying the first 3 Fast and Furious movies are a trilogy. And to which I say, get right out of here with that nonsense. That's ridiculous.
Family.
Because they're going to keep making those movies until we finally tell them to stop as one.
I think this is the last one, though.
Yeah, Vin Diesel just came out and said that this is a trilogy. They're ending with a trilogy. That Fast X is the first of a trilogy.
Yeah!
No!
Family!
No! This is horrible. This is like society's finally falling. Nobody wants this, right? Not even real Fast and Furious fans are excited about that, are they?
I will be watching this against my better judgment.
The Mariachi trilogy is on their list, which is El Mariachi in 1992, Desperado in 1995, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico in 2003 by Robert Rodriguez, Antonio Banderas, Salma Hayek, Cheech Marin, lots of people, Steve Buscemi, Quentin Tarantino, Danny Trejo.
I was going to say Danny T's in there.
Johnny Depp appears in Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Is it a trilogy? Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I won't argue.
Yeah, they were good movies. They weren't my favorite, but Robert Rodriguez had it when those first 2 movies come out, El Mariachi and Desperado. It's a different style. It's someone new, and he was young, and it was just kind of cool.
Like, he falls into the Tarantino thing for me that, like, you either really like Robert Rodriguez movies or you really don't.
Yeah. Well, and then he's got this is a weird trilogy kind of concept here. There's some trilogies that happen like this. So El Mariachi's done very cheaply. It's just a filmmaker trying to put his vision out there. It's the movie where Antonio Banderas kind of hits big. That's like El Mariachi's where he kind of gets discovered. And then Desperado is made in 1995, which sort of a sequel, but really just kind of a bigger budgeted retelling of the original.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's different in ways, but in a lot of ways it's the same. And then sometime later, Once Upon a Time in Mexico is like, okay, what if we made a movie with this character where we had all the Hollywood types in it? So Johnny Depp's in it. You get all these bigger names in it. And it's like, now that Robert Rodriguez has arrived, let's make a El Mariachi movie with all the peoples, right?
Yeah.
And I think that happens from time to time. So in the concept of, it's definitely not your standard trilogy where we had a story in mind. But sometimes they happen like that. And I'm okay with calling it a trilogy.
I'm good.
I think it's okay. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's
It's
bad.
not going to be towards the top of my list.
The Blade trilogy.
Oh, I know people that love the Blade trilogy.
So yeah, this one's interesting because people aren't used to Marvel having a presence like that was actually people loved until the MCU. or until Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. But Blade actually starts before that.
Oh, yeah, it does.
1998, 2002, 2004, Blade 2, and Blade Trinity. And there's a lot of people who say if it wasn't for Blade and Wesley Snipes, these movies, Marvel wouldn't be a thing. It saves Marvel.
And I know a guy who claims the best Marvel movies is the Blade trilogy.
Okay. He's wilding out a little bit. Listen. Yeah. I have a compassion for the Blade movies. They were not my thing. I was never really much interested in that character as far as a comic book character. But I'm certainly glad it exists and that it saved Marvel, that we get the MCU because of it, basically.
I'm just really waiting for the day that they do the Blade Morbius crossover.
Stop. So is it a trilogy?
Yes,
definitely,
it is.
Definitely. And is it good or bad? It's good. I think it's good.
They're all good, although Wesley Snipes tries to sabotage.
And I think it's one of those trilogies where you can see the declining quality in each one.
Thank you, Wesley.
The Mighty Ducks trilogy.
Yeah.
Again, if I'm being honest, a declining quality probably as it goes on. But I don't think you're supposed to look at those movies and be like, I want cinematic perfection. It's a feel-good kids movie.
Yeah. I never thought that this was going to be Citizen Kane quality.
And so is it a trilogy? Definitely.
You betcha.
Is it good?
You betcha.
Well, it was good for me.
Yes.
If it wasn't good for you, well,
it's a good popcorn flick.
Yeah. Austin Powers, we talked about.
Yeah.
Definitely a trilogy. Like it's literally a trilogy in every ways, but more of the Indiana Jones kind of vein where we're just kind of following a central character.
Yeah, we're just following that character.
It's very much a rip off the James Bond kind of movies. Although, I think they make 3 just because that's kind of how it fell out.
Yes.
He could, honestly, he's been asked about it and he could go back to the well and I'd watch it.
I'd give it a chance. Although at this point, I think I'm over a lot of Mike Myers.
Yeah. Mike Myers hasn't aged well, has he? He's sort of so he's a guy who when he's hitting big, there are stories out there about how he's difficult that I think nobody really wanted to hear. And now as he's older, maybe that you can see it a little more when he does some interviews sometimes. I don't know. There's just some things about him, especially his relationship with Dana Carvey.
That's a heartbreaking story.
Yeah. And so
the Love Guru did it for me. So
yeah, some of the shine has come off of Mike Myers. Although I will say Wayne's World is just one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. I love that movie more than I can say. And for that to only have 2 movies is very disappointing to me. That should have been a trilogy. But I will take Austin Powers. Is it a trilogy? Yes. Is it good? Yes. Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, 1979, 1981, 1985.
Melly Gibson's.
Is it a trilogy?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
What about Mad Max Fury Road?
That was a soft reboot.
I agree. I concur. I think the original with Mel Gibson is a trilogy, even though it's super weird.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say it kind of follows the framework of what we were talking about with El Mariachi. So you have George Miller coming out with his opus in Mad Max in 1979, far lower budget. Mad Max 2 is sort of like, hey, I got a little bit more money. Let's kind of tell the same story.
Yeah.
Maybe a little tweak here and there. And then there's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. We're like, I got all the money. Bring it on, Tina Turner.
Yeah.
And then make a song too. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, full on celebrity overload.
Love it.
Yeah, I still loved it. Beyond Thunderdome holds a special place in my heart. And I honestly couldn't summarize it for you. I have no idea what's going on in that movie. It's bonkers.
You couldn't handle the Thunderdome. let alone beyond it.
They list Terminator 1 through 3. I don't know, man. I don't know. Terminator.
When does Terminator 3 come out?
Okay, so Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, 1985, 1991, 2003. That one's rough.
Yeah, especially considering Jimmy Cameron keeps cashing in on it.
Yeah, it could have really followed the Star Wars original trilogy framework of a good trilogy if, like, the second movie's the best one. Judgment Day's great. But Rise of the Machines is just awful.
And then they kept making awful ones.
Yeah, and they just keep going back to the well. And I just think after 2, they all become cash grabs, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I'm just going to say it, I have trouble labeling it a trilogy, those first 3 movies. I don't think so.
So, because I think the next one doesn't come out that far after 2003.
No. And there's different actors in them. And I mean,
Yeah.
Then they bring Arnold back.
And it's a continuation of the story.
The Terminator franchise is just kind of a mess, in my opinion.
Yeah.
James Cameron would be highly insulted to hear me say that, but I think it's a mess.
You're not wrong.
X-Men in 2000, X-Men 2, 2003, X-Men The Last Stand in 2006. Is it a trilogy? This one's hard because Bryan Singer actually comes back after Ratner does the third one, but then it's a reboot. It's, the First Class.
Yeah.
So do these 3 stand alone as a trilogy? I'm leaning towards yes.
Yeah. It's a reboot.
But it's very much like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man for me, in which the first one is good. The second one's amazing. X-Men 2 is the best one. And then X-Men 3, The Last Stand, is just an abomination. So bad.
And then if you have the spin-off from it, the Wolverine origin.
It's some of those Wolverine standalone movies are just so bad as well. In fact, until Logan comes along, I'm genuinely confused as to why they keep making Wolverine movies. Because I want to know, like, who's seeing these movies?
So growing up, Wolverine, Hulk, and Thor are my 3 go-to Marvel people. And to see how trash Wolverine has been, like, broke my heart.
Well, and that's the funny thing about Hugh Jackman is everyone, rightly so, loves Hugh Jackman.
He seems like a nice dude.
Loves him in the role of Wolverine. But most of his work as Wolverine, maybe not his fault, is not good. I just think Wolverine's one of those characters that we want so desperately that we're willing to take Hugh Jackman giving a pretty good performance in a bad movie. We're willing to accept that.
Yeah.
Now, Logan saves it.
Oh, yeah.
Logan's a great movie, maybe a top 5 comic book movie of all time.
It's in the discussion.
Yeah, it's so good, and he's great in it because he was really great in all of them. But the story in some of those standalones, woof. Just woof. So is X-Men, the original X-Men, a trilogy? Yes. Is it good? Mostly.
It's okay.
It's, when you say the top trilogies of all time, I don't think of it.
It's not in my top comic book trilogy, so
yeah,
it's not making my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, they list Scream, which
no, they kept making those.
They kept making them,
and
there's a real argument to be made here that they should have stopped after 1. Scream, the movie Scream. So Scream in 1996. Scream 2 comes out 1 year later.
So I really like Scream 2, but there's only really one reason why I like Scream 2.
Oh, and that is?
The killer, spoiler alert, Timothy Oliphant.
Yes. Okay, good. Scream 3 comes out in 2000. What I really dislike about all the sequels to Scream is the original Scream in 1996 is one of my favorite movie theater experiences. I remember walking out of that movie and just being so jazzed. And I felt like I had seen something so completely new and different and entertaining.
Groundbreaking.
Really, it kind of was. And what they did was do something really subversive to the horror genre. And then in the sequels, they completely became everything they subversed and made fun of.
Yep. And in the more recent ones, they're trying to subverse the subversive storyline of the originals.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't know because I haven't seen them. I loved Scream. I saw Scream 2, never saw Scream 3. I'm like, no thanks.
I've seen them all.
So is it a trilogy? No.
No.
Is it not even good after Scream 1? I think Scream is a great subversive, one-of-a-kind movie, and then they ruined it.
I know there's going to be people that disagree, so.
Yeah. Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire, we kind of already talked about that. Is it a trilogy?
Yes.
Is it good? I say, sort of.
For the time.
Yeah. For the time, definitely. Although 3, like, there's something to be said about the trilogies. If you don't stick the landing, really hurts the overall quality. See the Star Wars sequels.
Yes.
Because I think if they stick the landing, we don't look at that as such a failure. Because, like, look, The Force Awakens, I was happy with. Last Jedi, I was pleased with. I liked Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
And then the third one's just atrocious. And now I have a really poor opinion of the whole trilogy.
Abomination.
Yeah. So if you don't stick the landing, and the Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy that's a problem.
But it gives us some great memes.
Definitely does. So yes, it's a trilogy. Is it good? I don't know. It's not the best. I wouldn't list it with the best. No. Here's an interesting one. Let's talk. We've talked about the original Star Wars and the Star Wars sequels. Let's talk about the prequels. Is it a trilogy?
Yes.
Clearly. Yes. Is it good?
So I told you.
There are people your age who would die for these prequels.
So I told you I rewatched it recently. Episodes 2 and 3. So I didn't watch 1, but rewatched episodes 2 and 3 with my wife. So I think, because when I watched them, I didn't watch them in theaters, but I watched them like as soon as they came out on DVD or VHS. I think the first one was VHS.
I waited in line on opening night for each one of these movies. 1999, 2002, 2005.
But I had a reverence for the original. And so at the time I said, this is a cash grab. Because back then I could tell you.
Cody, keeping it real.
But after watching the sequels, these are actually pretty good. And they set up the story for the originals quite well. And so, and I think it sets up The Last Jedi real well. Because a lot of people say, oh, Luke Skywalker wouldn't do that. Bull stuff. He would. He's a pouty crybaby. And in the prequels, Yoda's like, well, I'm packing up my bags, so I'm going to go pout in the swamp by myself. And, there's like Force ghosts now.
Yeah. The crazy thing about the Luke love is like Anakin, he's just as broken as Anakin.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why wouldn't he struggle? Like, they want Luke to be some sort of mythological hero.
He's not the one that brings the balance to the Force.
Yeah. So, I didn't understand that. I will say this. There's a time in my life where I judge these harshly.
Yes.
Over time,
I've softened.
I'm going to compare it to the Mighty Ducks series. And that might be a weird comparison, but I'm going to say this. There's something about the heart of the prequel movies that George Lucas, like, look, can't write dialogue.
No.
Cringy dialogue in these movies, and the acting, it often has some bad acting, leads to some bad acting, which I don't think is all the actor's fault. Clearly, Natalie Portman's great. Ewan McGregor's great. And I think, both Anakins get unfairly dumped on.
Yeah.
Jake Lloyd and
Hayden
Christensen. And so I can
poor
say
Jar
over
Jar.
time that I can look at these movies and say, is it great cinema? No, but yes. There's something about it. There's something in the heart of it that is kind of cool. So
Like,
is it a trilogy?
yes.
Is it a good trilogy? I'm going to say yes.
Like, it's rewatchable, but it's not something I'm going to go out of my way to watch. That's how I'll word it.
Yeah. Die Hard.
Yeah.
Die Hard 2. Die Hard with a Vengeance. I mean, I just don't see it as a trilogy.
It is.
Cody says yes. Are you gonna? We've kind of
It
talked
is
about
a
that.
great trilogy.
Die Hard: The Search for More Cash. Pirates of the Caribbean is listed on here, which no, same thing. This one suffers from this idea of where they make 2 and 3 concurrently. And I think it doesn't work because it feels Pirates 1 feels disjointed from Pirates 2 and 3. And Pirates 2 and 3 kind of suffer for it. Like, I loved the first Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, yeah.
What a shockingly good movie. Like, your first impulse when that came out was, really? You made a movie based on a theme park ride?
Ready for the teacup movie.
And then I saw it and was like, that was amazing. What a great movie. In fact, I still rewatched the original. But 2 and 3 are terrible. And then they made like 3 more.
Although the other 2 or 3 don't have Orlando Bloomin' Onion and what's her name?
Keira Knightley.
Keira Knightley, a.k.a. Natalie Portman's stunt double.
Alien, the Alien trilogy. Is it a trilogy? They've made far more Alien movies than those 3, although the first 3 come out close together. Alien comes out in 1979. Aliens comes out in 1986, and Alien 3 comes out in 1992. So the 2 and 3 come out pretty close. Alien is like classic sci-fi.
Yeah.
And this is one of those where the sequel is way better. Like, it's like Terminator 2. Aliens is fantastic. Such a great movie. Alien 3, not so much, kind of misunderstood. People didn't really get it. And kind of, I don't know. I have a hard time classifying it as a trilogy. If anything, I want to say Alien and Aliens and then just kind of cut off the rest.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not a huge Aliens, like the series, not the second movie, but I'm not a huge fan of that franchise. Although like you said, I think the second one's the far superior out of the lot. I mean, if you want to call it a trilogy, I'm okay with it, but at the same time, I really am not invested in this. So
yeah. Let's do their top 10 on Empire here, kind of quick style. Let's just run it down. The Evil Dead trilogy. Is it a trilogy?
Yes.
Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
Yeah.
Give
And then
me
they've
more Bruce Campbell.
rebooted them, which
Yeah.
is fine, but a lot less Bruce Campbell-y,
Oh yeah.
which is not fine.
So it goes a much more lot less absurdist, a lot darker.
Army of Darkness is one of my favorite movies ever. I love that movie. It's campy. Sam Raimi, just great stuff.
Oh yeah.
Is it a trilogy? Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Is it good? Yes, absolutely. The Matrix trilogy is number 9. Is it a trilogy? Yeah, I suppose. They did a cash grab recently. Is it good? I'm going to say no. No, it was a great original movie that kind of they brought down. They have number 8, the Dollars trilogy, which is a fistful of dollars for a few dollars more. The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, 1964, 1965, 1966, directed by Sergio Leone and, of course, starring Clint Eastwood. Is it a trilogy? Well, it seems clear that it's yes.
You betcha it is.
Yeah. Is it good?
Yeah.
Sure.
I really liked them.
I haven't seen them since I was a kid, but they were good.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones at number 7. Is it a trilogy?
Yes.
Cody says yes. I say no.
100% yes. I have seen 15 seconds of Crystal Skull, and that was accidentally because Leah was watching it, and she's like, we've never watched this Indiana Jones movie
Cody
together.
is eternal sunshining of the spotless mind in his brain when it comes to Indiana Jones.
Yes.
And so it's going to remain a sequel or a trilogy in his brain. Clearly, those first 3 movies,
Classic.
they're so good. So good. The Bourne trilogy, which, again,
Haven't they made more?
there's tons of them.
Okay.
But the first 3 movies are great. Matt Damon's good. I like those movies. I didn't like the shaky cam. Give me motion sickness, but is it a trilogy? I don't know about that. Is it good? I like some of them.
It falls under the Mission Impossible thing.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, it feels like while those first three may have a continuing story, which I'm pretty sure they do, if I remember right, it's certainly not memorable enough to be like, oh, that's one of the great trilogies of all time. Like, nah, it's right in front of, in their list, Godfather trilogy, which
you get out of
would
here.
you even put Bourne next to Godfather? Like, now, come on. I like some of the Bourne movies, but no. The Godfather trilogy, yes, classic trilogy.
Because literally, like, The Godfather is in like the top 10 of all time movies on like a lot of critics' lists.
The only thing is the time disparity between 2 and 3, 72, 74, 90. Is it good? Well, yeah, it's one of the best trilogies of all time.
Yes.
But
It suffers from the last one.
yes, it comes dangerously close to not sticking the landing. However, I think if you're judging that third one just as a standalone movie, you understand, well, the first two are so good. Judging it by the first two, maybe not fair.
Not fair at all.
But yeah. Number 4, the Toy Story trilogy, which no,
they've made more.
You made more.
They made more.
Like, you ruined it. It was a good trilogy.
Oh, yeah. The third one choked up.
Yeah.
Tears.
But then you made 4. And then you're going to make 5.
Yes.
No. It was good. What you had was good. Maybe one of the best trilogies of all time, but you ruined it.
You ruined it with a cash grab.
Number 3, Back to the Future trilogy. Definitely a trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
85, 89, 90. It is one of the ones where they made 2 and 3 concurrently.
Yes.
In fact, in the theater, this is one of the first movies I remember 2 ends with the trailer for 3.
Ooh.
Which, yeah, the teaser, the trailer, whatever it was, that was the first time I remember seeing that. And so, yeah, definitely a trilogy, and it doesn't suffer from 2 and 3 being made concurrently. It's great.
Yeah.
Great. One of the best trilogies of all time.
By the way, if you have Apple TV, watch the documentary Still.
Michael J. Fox. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't seen it yet, but I got it on my queue. I'm going to watch that. And by the way, they should never remake Back to the Future.
You stay away from that franchise.
Don't do it. They have the original Star Wars trilogy at number 2. I think when we're talking about trilogies, the original Star Wars trilogy is the ultimate textbook example of how to make a trilogy. You got the beginning, which is the introduction of the characters. It's about to take you on this grand adventure. 2 is the dark middle entry. 3, the happy conclusion. 3 is like the end game.
Yeah. You get Ewoks dancing and Ghost Dad waving.
Nub. I think it's fantastic and maybe one of the best trilogies, if not the best trilogy of all time. They have number 1, Lord of the Rings. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, that one's hard to argue against.
Yeah.
I am upset with this list though.
Okay, what's not on there?
Forget Tobey Maguire. Christian Bale did not put on the bat suit.
Oh, yeah. How is that not on there?
So if you say Batman Begins is a speed bump to start off.
No. That's everyone refers to that as the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yes, I'm
That
saying
deserves to be listed among the top 10 trilogies.
Oh
in my
yeah.
opinion.
And like, so I get that some people really don't like Batman Begins. That's kind of slow moving. But if you are a Batman nerd, you love it. And you finally figure out how he knows karate or martial arts. Because like every other movie series, everyone knows martial arts, but you don't know how they know it. He trained with Ra's al Ghul.
I know Kung Fu. Not like the Matrix and Keanu.
Yes.
Yeah, that's weird. What a weird oversight.
And it has at least 2 of the best villains within comic book lore, within trilogies. And the Joker and Bane breaks the bat.
I think if Heath Ledger doesn't die,
oh my goodness,
we're sitting here today talking about that being the best trilogy of all time.
Quite
I don't
possibly.
think that's a stretch, because whatever he had planned, Nolan, the Joker was a part of it.
Yes.
And we'll never get it. And that's sad. And I still think that The Dark Knight Rises, while not a great movie, is still a good movie.
It lands.
Yeah, it definitely lands, and I'm mystified as why it's not on their list. Wow.
Yeah. Kick rock, Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely deserves to be above the Spider-Man trilogy.
And Blade.
And Blade. Yeah. That's weird. What a weird, yeah. All right.
DC slander.
What'd we miss? Is there a trilogy we missed? Someone's about to say the White Castle Bros. I'm just like, stop it.
I had to look up and see if Sharknado was a trilogy. They made 5 of them. All good.
What trilogies do you love? What did we get right? What did we get wrong? Please interact with us on our social media posts. If you haven't followed our social media, you probably should, because here's the deal. The reason we really do this is we want to connect with people. We want this to be a community. We love talking about nerd things and geek culture, and we love going to comic conventions and meeting you all, and we just love you guys a lot, and this is why we do it. So please interact with us, join the community group on Facebook, and talk about it with us. Please. All right. Until next time, here is Blood Sweat with the Pop Culture Pastor theme song. Take it, Blood Sweat.
Pop Culture Pastor.